Hey, you guys. Today we are going to be talking about culture. So, this is going to build off the 5 themes of geography, which we talked about earlier, which lets us understand how where a people live affects how they live and what they do there. Today we're going to talk about culture, which talks about sort of the way people make their lives. This is an easy, quick little cheat sheet for you to reference when you are creating your own ideal culture. These are the 7 elements, so the 7 pieces that we are going to focus on, and we'll be talking about these as we move throughout the regions of the world this semester. The first piece of culture is going to deal with social organization, and that can also be thought of as family units and also social classes and how we organize people from the larger group into smaller groups. And in some places, nuclear families are the norm, which typically would have a husband and wife and their kids, whereas other people live with several generations. So if you would live with your grandparents, maybe your aunts and uncles live close, your cousins. So there's a nuclear family versus an extended family. The next element of culture would be customs and traditions. And this really is basically just the rules of behavior. So how are you supposed to behave in your culture? And the rules vary from culture to culture. So what is normal for one group of people might not be normal for another group. And these also change over time. So what used to be American culture and normal in American culture is probably very different than the way things are today. There are different types of customs and traditions. There are folkways, and these are things that are just not that important. Do we eat with a fork and spoon? Do we eat with our fingers? Do we use bread to pick food up? Chopsticks? These are not earth-shattering, life-changing things. However, other customs and traditions are very important, and this would be laws. Obviously, we have a set of agreed upon laws that we think are very important. You shouldn't murder people. You shouldn't steal. So those are things that are going to be essential that all people follow. Language is the cornerstone of culture. Every single culture has language. Now, not all are written languages, but without language, you do not have culture because there is no way to communicate the norms and values of your society to the next generation. Arts and literature are a valuable part of culture because they teach us about what is important. This is why your English teachers make you read the same novels that have been read for generations so that we have these shared ideas and values. And governments support arts and literature because they see them as being a good way to create this cultural pride that people want to have. Religion is the next element of culture, and we are going to be talking about a variety of different religions as we move throughout this course. When we talk about monotheism, which is the worship of one God, and there are 3 main monotheistic religions that we'll talk about: Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. And then polytheism, this is the worship of many gods, and we'll talk about that as well. Government exists to provide for the common needs. The initial idea of government was to keep order and protect people from outside threats. Now we know that government has grown and developed and become much more complex over time. We have several different forms of government. We have democracies where people have supreme power. A democracy, people vote. They make the decisions. They vote on laws. These are very cumbersome, and in a country as large as the United States, while we do have some elements of democracy, some referendums and those sorts of things, it is more common for us to practice as a democratic republic, whereas a republic, we choose the leaders who represent us. And then we have dictatorship. And that is when a ruler or a group of people hold power by force. And so we will be talking about how that looks and how that affects people's lives as well. And then the last element of culture is economic systems. And basically, this is a way that we have limited resources and we have to decide how we are going to use them. And we answer three basic economic questions: what goods and services will be produced, how should we produce them, and for whom should we produce them? And there are different economic systems that answer these questions in different ways. So in a traditional economy, people pretty much produce what they need to survive. So they might trade and barter, but they're going to grow their own food, weave their own baskets, make their own clothes. So they're very self-sufficient in a traditional economy. In a market economy, individuals answer the basic questions. So basically, that means that I can decide if I want to open a new business and sell something that I think people really need. And if people decide that they do really need that, I might be very successful. So individuals answer the questions, and then they are at the mercy of the people to whom they are selling. A command economy is where the government makes all of the decisions, and they tell people what to produce, how to produce it, for whom to produce it. And most commonly is going to be a mixed economy where the individuals and the government answer the questions together. And we see this even in the oversight of manufacturing, for example. So while we do tend to think of ourselves as being a very market capitalistic economy, we are at the mercy of government regulation. So if I want to build a car and sell a car, well, there are certain set safety features that must be included in my car. And I have to have seatbelts. I can't just not put seatbelts in. So that's where government oversight affects a mixed economy. So you guys are now having a little more information about the elements of culture. I want you to think about your ideal culture, and that will take you to your activity for today, which is to write me a story about your ideal culture, including all of the elements, and the directions can be found on Schoology.